Awesome. So before we get started, I'll let Caleb tell everyone hello. We do have the state officers on with us this morning. They've been very busy this week. This is the normal week for the Washington, D.C. trip. They've been doing it virtually, so they've been spending every afternoon doing summit work. So I'll let Caleb tell you a little bit about what they've been doing this week, and then we'll get going.
Hey y'all, it's Caleb. So like Mr. Lejeune was saying, we were supposed to be in Washington, D.C. this week for the State Officer Summit, but due to the coronavirus, it did go to a virtual format. So we've just been having a very fun and learning lots of new things about advocacy this week. And just yesterday, we had the opportunity to meet with some of our legislators. We got to meet with Congressman Mike Johnson and a person on Senator Cassidy's staff yesterday. So it's been a really awesome experience so far. And that's really about it. So I'll turn it back over to Mr. Lejeune.
Thank you, Caleb. Someone in the chat said they couldn't hear. Check your audio on your computer because I hear all the sound coming through ours. Is anybody else having audio issues? I think the audio is up and running. So if you're having an audio issue, check on your computer and make sure that you have yours connected. So the purpose of this short meeting today is to make sure that all of our registered delegates are prepared for this year's delegate process. As you know, the current version of our delegate process has gone on since about 2006. Mr. Doug, I think you were around back for those first ones back in the day. I think I was a state officer back then. So we've been doing this now for going on what, Mr. Doug, 15 years. This version of the delegate process. It's been very successful on the state level. It's resulted in chapters being able to influence policy and direction of the association. We've had lots of improvements to FFA in Louisiana have taken place as a result. We've even forwarded ideas to the national level and had our state make an impact there. So it's very critical that we continue to engage, and it's very critical that you as your voting delegates from your chapter engage. We had conversations whenever coronavirus put everything on hold as to what this process could look like, but we felt that it was still very important for it to continue. We don't want to stop. We don't want to eliminate programs. We're going to take advantage of the technology that we have and keep going. So today we're going to give you a little background on how the delegate process works, and then specifically for this year, how is it going to work in this virtual format. So first off, procedures. This will apply for today, and it's also going to apply for the committee meetings on Friday and also for the large statewide delegate meeting next Tuesday. So please keep yourself muted when you're not speaking so that we don't get a lot of feedback. If you're getting slow connection on your end, turn your camera off too. Sometimes when everyone's camera's on, it can crash the system. I think so far this morning we're doing okay, but if yours is slowing down, try turning your camera off and see if that helps. If you have a question during the presentation, put it in the chat box and I'll try to keep up with it. If I miss one, the state officers can help me. They can call it out and I'll try to answer it for you, but we will have question time at the end of the presentation also. When you do want to speak, make sure you unmute your microphone so that we can hear you. If you start talking and the microphone's muted, we're not know what you're saying. So make sure you do that. If you lose internet connection, don't panic. Just get your internet reconnected and click on the meeting link to rejoin. My computer has been crashing for the past 2 weeks or so. I don't know what's going on with my internet here at home. So it happens. Again, the meeting is being recorded. So if you miss anything, I'll make sure it's posted so you can go back and watch. Does anyone have questions on procedures? Perfect. So first off, I want to introduce to you who our teacher coordinators are. We select 8 teachers every year to serve on our 4 committees. We have 2 teachers on each committee. 4 of them are area advisors, and then the area advisor selects someone from the area to assist them. So this year, our first committee on SAE and AET, we have Mr. Doug Fisher and Ms. Kayla Raschow. Mr. Doug is the ag teacher at Pearl River. Ms. Raschow is at Natchitoches. He's the area 2 advisor. Committee 2 for the special looking for areas of improvement for students with special needs. We have Mr. Adams, who's the Area 3 advisor. He's the teacher at Franklin High School. Miss Erica Anderson, who is the teacher at Homer High School. And then Committee 3 for running off the floor for State NomCom, we have Mr. Thibodeau from Crowley and Miss Amy Green from Florine. And Committee 4 on the affiliated, the registration for affiliated chapters, we have Mr. Trish, who's the Area 4 advisor from Central Lafourche, Miss Bro, who is the advisor from North Webster. So these 8 teachers will be working with you through this process. They'll specifically be supervising those committees on Friday. as you go through the process. So feel free to reach out to them if you have questions as we move on. As a refresher of the delegate process, most of our state and area officers are probably very familiar with this. Many of our delegates are, but some of you, this might be your first opportunity to interact with it. So we wanted to give you a quick introduction into what the delegate process looks like. First off, keep in mind that the delegate process is grassroots. It's designed to encourage chapters to come up with good ideas. We don't want FFA to ever be a situation where only state officers get to make decisions or ideas. We definitely are not going to make it a situation where state staff is coming up with all the ideas to generate. This is supposed to be a student-led organization, and we strive to do everything we can to make sure that it's student-led in Louisiana. So this process is for U.S. chapter members to make positive change in the association. It's very organized. We have a formal structure that we follow every year for those ideas to be proposed. That way it keeps it fair. It ensures that every chapter has a fair shot at bringing up ideas, at having their ideas heard. It's very transparent. We make sure that nothing's hidden. There's no hidden agenda here. It's open and honest so that chapters can discuss and so that debate can take place in a democratic and an impartial manner. And then again, it's student-led. All chapters have an opportunity to participate. Every chapter by our state constitution is entitled to 2 votes in the delegate process and at state convention. So every chapter has the opportunity to be heard and to make their voices heard. The process starts every year in the fall from November through February of the following year. The process is open for ideas. This year we had, I believe, 6 delegate issues that were proposed. So it can be anything. It can run the full range of FFA, ag education, foundation, alumni, anything that's ag education related in Louisiana can be brought up as a delegate issue if a chapter sees a need for an improvement. In March of the year, the area officers meet at SLDC. This year it was done virtually because of coronavirus. The past state officer team, the 1920 team, did a wonderful job of converting over to a virtual format. And they continue that process of allowing area officers to meet. While at SLDC, the area officers discuss these issues, they go over the issues, and then they rank the issues from what they feel is the most important to the least important. The top 4 become the 4 delegate committees. We choose 4 every year just because logistically 4 is about the most we can handle. In a physical year in Alexandria, we only have space for 4 committees. We didn't want to change that system this year since we had already selected these committees prior to the announcement that convention would go virtual. So that's why we end up with 4. So they determine the final list of issues, and then the area officers divide themselves amongst those committees and they elect their leadership delegates for each committee. So each committee typically has a chair, a vice chair, a secretary, a sentinel, and discussion leaders. The area officers then start coming up with questions that they want answered for each committee. State staff conducts research. We also take testimony from chapters that propose the issues. This year, you'll see that we've also posted on our website question and answers that the area officers in the chapters participated in during the virtual SLDC. So we provide as much information as we can to help delegates make informed decisions on each of these committee issues, and we try to look at it from all aspects to make sure that they're fully prepared to make decisions on the questions. Typically, state convention takes place in June. That's where the committees would meet. This year, it's a little delayed. Obviously, we're going to do this Friday, and we'll finish it up next week. And then from the time that the committees are finished through the fall, when our state executive committee meets again, our staff will compile the committee reports, and then we forward those to the executive board for further action. Sometime in the fall, the executive committee meets. They'll take final action on those committee recommendations. It's not the executive board's job to just strike down actions that students propose. As long as the things that students propose are financially feasible, as long as they're not illegal, as long as it's not going to put the association in any sort of situation where the action cannot be taken, those recommendations are approved and they're implemented in the best way possible. And then by the following year at the next state convention, sometimes those executive actions require further delegate work. So it may require a constitutional amendment that would come up at the following state convention. So it's possible through this process that you could go 2 years before final action is taken, depending on the particular question. But we believe, as in here in the United States, that sometimes going slower is better. We try not to rush through anything to make decisions or actions that are not going to be in the best interest of the association. So it's a patient process, but it's designed to be that way to make sure that we make the best possible decisions. Does anyone have questions on the process before we move forward? We discussed earlier that we have 8 teacher coordinators who help to supervise these committees. They have specific roles. They guide the process through the committee work. So they can provide, as a committee, if there's procedural questions that need to be answered during the process, we'll reference back to those advisors. We do everything we can to make sure that the state office is not directing this work, to make sure that we're not trying to guide it in one way or another. It's very much based on the students under the advice of chapter and area advisors to make sure that it goes in that direction. The teachers facilitate member learning. This is a learning opportunity for you as delegates. You're going to learn a lot about parliamentary procedure. You're going to learn a lot about etiquette, decorum, how to debate, how to get your point across. So there's an opportunity for learning as part of this process also. Our advisors or guardians, they protect the process protocol. Again, we want to be fair. We want to be transparent. We want to be open. We want to be structured. The advisors serving in those roles protect that process. And then those advisors also vow to be impartial. They don't let their personal bias or the interest of their chapter interfere with the duties that they're carrying out on the delegate process as those advisors. And then we have our leadership delegates. These are made up of area officers. This year it's going to be a hybrid. We're going to have some of the current state officers are going to be serving in these leadership delegate roles because they would have been area advisors, or they would have been area officers had this taken place at state convention in June. So this will be the first year we have current serving state officers that'll serve in these leadership roles also. I will say that in the main state session next Tuesday, Jaden and Dakota are going to be the 2 state officers presiding over that. Jaden will still preside over the statewide delegate session, and Dakota is going to be the secretary keeping the minutes because that would have been their role at state convention. So our leadership delegates, they act as facilitators. It's the job of the area officers to lead the work of the committees. They've already met multiple times up to this point to plan their committee process. They do this every year. Again, they've already started asking questions to provide clarity as you go through your committee work. They elect certain leadership positions amongst themselves on the committee. So they elect a chair, they elect a vice chair, they elect a secretary, and you can read their roles. Just like under parliamentary procedure, the chair manages the event. The chair has to be fluent in parliamentary procedure to make sure that the committee is run fairly and according to Robert's Rules of Order. The only stipulation, the chairman can't be from the chapter that submitted the proposal, to try our best to keep impartiality on the committee. We don't want the chairman to try to be steering the committee in any certain way. Same thing with the vice chair. They assist the chair. They have to be fluent in parliamentary procedure, can't be from the committee that submits the proposal. The secretaries keep official documentation. All of these reports that we type up are going to be official, and they're preserved in the state office forever. We don't lose any of it, to make sure that we have a historical documentation of actions that were taken. So those secretaries keep minutes. They'll type the reports up. And all of these reports are posted on our website at the conclusion of the process, and I'll show you where you can find all of those documents. They'll typically elect a sentinel who keeps the committee running on time. For these committee meetings on Friday, you're going to have exactly 2 hours, so 120 minutes in which you have to get all of your work done. That's pretty standard for what we normally do at state convention, so it's important that we stay on time, and we'll go over the time breakdown with you here shortly. Finally, they will select discussion group leaders. So as part of your committee process, you're going to break off into smaller groups to discuss topics. This will help to get more creative ideas generated. Those discussion group leaders are not their role is not to give you things to talk about. Their role is to make sure that you continue talking and to help ask questions to keep the conversation moving. Does anyone have questions on advisors or leadership delegates? So now we'll look at the process that you're going to follow on Friday in your committees. We have these timed out. These times are estimates. You're not going to hard and fast necessarily stick to them, but it's to guide the committee to ensure that you stay on time. So you'll start with a call to order and a roll call. We already have the committee rosters made up. You can find them on our website. I'll show you where they are so that you know which committee you're attending. We'll call a roll and make sure that all of our delegates are in attendance. The chair of the committee is going to introduce the committee purpose. They're going to give any background that was provided by the proposing chapter, talk about why the committee has been formed. Then we'll have about 20 minutes of full committee discussion. So as delegates, you can give your opinion on the topic. You can tell if you're for the topic, against the topic, however you feel about it. Any discussion is fine as long as it's germane to the topic. You have to discuss the topic at hand. If you're in the committee on SAE and AET opportunities, you can't talk about state officer election. That's not the purpose of the committee. So make sure your committee discussion is based on the topic. All of your discussion must be directed to the chair. This is going to be a little different in a virtual setting. If we were in a normal room together, you can't look at another delegate and call out a delegate or yell at a delegate or discuss straight to a delegate. According to Robert's Rules of Order, all of your discussion needs to be directed through the chairman so that it can remain civil and orderly. After those first 20 minutes of committee discussion are up, you're going to break out into your small groups. You'll have at least 30 minutes to discuss within your small group on specific topics. Typically, we'll rotate you through topics so that you'll have an opportunity to discuss all of them. This is where you're probably going to start generating your points that are going to go into the committee report. Each of your committee reports should have a few recommendations that you're going to forward to the executive board. And in these small groups, that's where you're going to come up with those ideas that you want to put into the committee report. Once that time is up, you'll come back for your full committee discussion. You'll bring up these ideas that you discussed in the small group. The small group leaders will present them, and then all of the delegates in the committee can discuss those ideas further for about another 25 minutes or so. And then finally, you'll start formulating your recommendations. So based on all of your discussions, based on your committee breakouts, you're going to start forming your recommendations for the report. The leadership delegates and advisors already have samples of what past reports have looked like. So they're going to provide you with those formats of these are some of the things or this is how we should be structuring the report. Your report can include any ideas you want, again, as long as they're germane to the topic that your committee is discussing. I would recommend that you vote on one recommendation at a time, put them into the report. And then once the report is written, you'll have one final discussion and you'll vote on the final written committee report. We'll make sure we get a recorded counting vote on that so that we can send it on to the state assembly next Tuesday. Does anyone have questions on how the process works? This is what you can expect on Friday in your committee meeting. So remember, in our committees, we're going to be using parliamentary procedure, but on a committee, the parliamentary procedure rules are somewhat relaxed according to Robert's Rules of Order. It's not quite as structured as we will have in the full statewide assembly. So within a committee, members are allowed unlimited debate. You know that in a large assembly, according to Robert's Rules of Order, you're restricted to 2 debates per member per motion. In a committee, it's more relaxed than that. It's unlimited. Just keep in mind, though, that we do have time constraints. The chair will do a good job of ensuring that everyone gets an opportunity to speak, and so that one person's not speaking the whole time. In the committee, motions that restrict debate are out of order. So you can't propose previous question. You can't limit or extend limits of debate. That's not in order in a committee meeting because it's more informal and relaxed. The committee can't adopt motions to postpone. You can't refer to a committee because you're already in a committee. You can't lay on the table because you have to get the work done in the committee time. So your role on Friday is to get a committee report written and forwarded to the state delegation. So just keep that in mind. When you're in small group discussions, formal debate rules are not necessary. It's an informal discussion within the group. Your discussion group leader will help to facilitate that conversation, but you don't have to make formal motions in your small group. Leadership delegates are allowed to debate and vote if they are one of the 2 official delegates from their chapter. The chair should not debate and vote while the chair is presiding, according to Robert's Rules of Order. But if you are a leadership delegate and you're one of your 2 official delegates from your chapter, you are allowed to debate and vote. In the committee, the discussion can take place on the topic without a formal motion. So we get that question a lot, or if we're just starting a committee discussion, does someone have to say, I move, in order for the discussion to take place? You don't have to do that. You're going to make your formal motion once your committee report is written. That will become the motion. That's what you're going to take your final vote on. Remember that the topic itself is not a motion. So for example, again, Committee 1 is the Committee on SAE and AET opportunities. that itself is not a motion. There's not a motion on the floor until the member moves one. So you're going to create that motion as a result of your committee discussion and the report that you generate. And then finally, again, your discussion has to remain germane to that committee topic. You don't offer discussion on something that's not related to which your committee should be discussing. You'll be called out of order if you do that. Does anyone have questions on parliamentary procedure as it applies to committees? Once we get to the large statewide meeting on Tuesday, Robert's Rules of Order is fully in effect. So then it's limited to 2 debates per member. All motions are in order, just like you would do in a parliamentary procedure competition. So a few procedures to cover for you. First off, whenever you join in on Friday or when you come back next Tuesday for the state meeting, I see some of you have already done this. If you haven't, let's go ahead and try this right now so that we can keep track of who's in the meeting so that we can take accurate roll. You're going to name yourself on Zoom as your chapter name and either 1 or 2. So if I pull this up again and look, let me pull my grid up here. I see some of you have done this. You should be able to click on your name or on your Zoom box. Everyone do this right now. In your Zoom box, if you scroll over it, you should see 3 dots in the top right corner. If you click on those 3 dots, one of the options should say rename. And if you click on rename, just as an example, I'm going to rename myself. I'll rename myself Springfield 1. So if you rename yourself and click OK, you should see your name changes in the corner. So go ahead and try that now. Make sure you can do it. And then when you come back in for your committee meetings on Friday, when you join the state meeting next week, you'll name yourself that way. This is only if you're an official delegate. If you're a state officer or if you're an area officer who's not an official delegate, you don't have to name yourself that way. Does anyone not see how that works? Ooh, wrong way. So we'll make sure we name ourselves. During debate, if we all turn our microphones on at the same time, it's going to get really loud and confusing. So the way that other states have done this, and it seems like it works really well, if you want to debate, you're going to use the raise your hand feature to gain recognition from the chair. So Sydney, I see your picture on my screen right now. Go ahead and raise your hand. See, Bryson just raised his hand. Like actually raise your hand using the function. If you click on those 3 dots again, there you go. You click on the 3 dots, there should be an option for you to raise your hand on it. So you see how the state officers are raising their hands. If you could, everybody on the call right now, go ahead and raise your hand. Make sure you can do it. There you go. See a bunch of you figuring it out. Caleb, tell everyone where the feature is if they can't find it.
Okay, so I thought I was using a different feature. Mr. LeJeune, there is an actual raise hand button, like when you click on participants, I think. Is that what we're using?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So everyone, if you go to participants, there's going to be like a little blue raise hand button, and you should be able to click on that. And now your hand is raised.
Yeah. I don't see it. I've got the host function on mine, so I can't see that button's not there for me.
Okay.
So there you go. So you see all the blue hands coming up. That's how we're going to know who to call on. I'll be in the meetings. I'll be helping the chair, and next Tuesday I'll be helping Jaden to make sure that we identify people who want to speak. So make sure that we give everybody the opportunity. Whenever you are called upon, make sure you unmute your microphone and your camera so we can see you. Say your debate, and then when you're done, mute your microphone and your camera. When you stop speaking for a couple of seconds, that's how we'll know that you're finished, and then we'll move on. For voting, we're going to use the Zoom polling feature that will, for anything that's going to require a recorded vote. So I'm going to stop sharing this for just a second. We're going to practice this right now. I've got 3 polling questions that I've set up for you as practice. And I see someone says, can you send us the PowerPoint at the end of the presentation? Yes, I'm going to share this with All the advisors who've registered, I've got all their email addresses. We're also going to post this up on our website. We'll post the actual video. It's being recorded right now. So we're going to practice right now using the polling feature. So anytime we're going to have to take a recorded vote, this is how we're going to vote. So what should happen is I'm going to pull the poll up, and you should see, everyone should see the question pop up on your screen. Go ahead and answer it, and then I'll show you the results. So the first question, it's going to say, do you believe in the future of agriculture? And you're going to answer yes or no. So right now, everybody should see the question on your screen. And I know how many people are in the meeting, so I should get the right number of answers. It looks like 54 of 57 people have voted. Is anybody else trying to vote? I'll leave it open for 5 more seconds. Then I'll close the vote, and then I can show you how you voted. So everybody should see results right now, correct? I'm very happy that 100% of you do believe in the future of agriculture. It's very important to me that you believe that. So here's our second question. The second question is going to say, are you ready for school to start? This will probably give us different answers this time. So you should see the question on your screen. I can see you voting live. It's kind of funny to see these two lines chasing each other. It's like we picked up an extra vote this time. Delegate from South Lafourche 2, has it popped up on your screen yet? I see you said you couldn't see it. Still not there? What are you on? Are you using a cell phone, a tablet, or a computer? Using a Mac. Is anybody else using a Mac to do this? Or are you having issues seeing the poll?
No, sir. It popped up on my screen. Sydney, what about you?
Yeah, I'm on a MacBook, and I'm not having trouble seeing it either.
All right. Mr. Zach, that's one of your delegates, correct? Are you on the call, Mr. Zach? I think I saw you come in earlier. I'll reach out. I'll call you when we're done, Mr. Zach. If you want to, we can practice with that delegate and troubleshoot it, make sure we get it right. The delegate from Rain said you can vote twice. It's going to let you keep voting until I close the poll. So I'll tell you when the poll is going to close. It's not counting your vote multiple times. It's just going to let you switch until the poll closes. So I'm going to close it now. And here's the results. So it looks like most of you are ready to go back to school. Let's try one more. Delegate from South Lafourche, see if this one pulls up for you. This one says, are you able to use Zoom effectively for the process? School means ag trips, I understand. I'm ready for that too. All right, I'll leave it open for about 10 more seconds. I'm going to close the poll. So there you go. So I think that this is going to work okay for us. It looks like all of you, for the most part, are able. For the couple of you that are having issues, I'll reach out to your advisor. We'll make sure to go before Friday. So that's the polling feature that we're going to use. Does anybody have questions on the polling or how we're going to vote? We're not always going to use the polling to vote. Some of the votes can take a voice vote. For things like the final vote on the committee, though, we're going to need a counting vote, so we'll use the poll in that regard. I can quickly create a poll. So if the presiding officer or if a member calls for a recorded vote, I'll quickly write up the question and we'll share it that way. Does anyone have questions on procedures before we move on? Yes, ma'am.
So when it comes down to voting, do we just call it by percentages, or is that like transfer to numbers?
No, it shows me the actual recorded number. I can see it on the poll. And I believe I'm going to go look after we're done with this. I think it may even record the results on the main screen, but if not, if it doesn't do that, I can take screenshots of it too. That way we have proof of how the vote went on each one. And I'm going to put it up on the screen too, so you'll be able to see it. Any other questions? All right, so as a delegate, what should you be doing to prepare between now and Friday and next week? All of the information you need is on our website, and I'm here in a second. If you go to laffa.org/conv-delegates, you'll see the information that's going to be necessary for you to participate in the process. Make sure you read the information on that page. Make sure you talk to your advisor about the information before the assembly starts. Advisors are allowed to observe the committee process, to observe the statewide meeting next week, but only delegates can speak and debate and vote. So make sure you discuss with your advisor prior to starting. Let me take you to this website. See if it opens. Can everyone see the website on my screen? Perfect. So if you go to the website, if you can't find it, if you need to look for where it is, if you go to our home page, click on association, click on student leadership, go to delegate process, and if you go to overview, click here. It'll take you back to the same page again if you don't have the direct link. Anyway, it'll give you the overview. The overview, here's how the schedule is going to work. What we've done is that for each of the committees, this is the original rationale that was given by each chapter whenever they submitted their committee recommendation. If they provided testimony for SLDC, it's linked here. So if you click on them, it should pull them up. I'll just show you an example. So there's the original proposal. Here is written testimony that they were given an opportunity to provide as part of the virtual SLDC experience. I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but if you open it, it's a Word document. So that information is provided for all 4 chapters. We've got the delegate flowchart and the FA Constitution here. And then on the right side, you'll see the agenda for the meeting next Tuesday. You'll see the recommendation for dues, which we're not recommending any change this year. We want the same as last year. Here's the list of committee rosters. Make sure you take a look at this Excel sheet. This will tell you which committee you're supposed to be participating in on Friday. You're not participating in all 4 committees. You've been assigned to one. Each of your delegates is assigned to one committee, so make sure you look at the roster. These were the original questions that area officers asked of the proposing chapters and the responses that the chapters gave to them. And then these 4 research documents are questions that the area officers came up with prior to the committee process starting. So we've put as much data and research on here as we could from the entire process so that you can make an informed decision. So make sure that you take a look at that before we start the process. Let me try to go back to the PowerPoint again. Does anyone have questions on the website before we move on?
Yeah, Mr. Lejeune,
Yes, ma'am.
when you were showing us the website or whatever, it just stayed on the PowerPoint from my end.
I'm sorry, hold on. Did anybody see the website?
No, sir. It stayed on the PowerPoint on my
Stayed
end
on the
too. And a couple people are saying that in the chat too.
Okay, I'll go back to it in just a second. So now that we're at questions, let me just go ahead and go back to the PowerPoint for you. Back to the website. Now, can you see it? All right. So if you click on that link, laffa.org/conv-delegates, it'll bring you to this page. Again, here's the information on the process. Here's the 4 committees, the rationale of the chapters that proposed the issues, and their testimony that they provided. Committee 3, they didn't provide testimony. That's why it's not there. So testimony from the ones that provided. And then on the right, this is the agenda for the business session next week. The dues recommendation from the executive board, the recommendation is to stay the same. The rosters, the area officer question and answer, and then the 4 research documents from area officer questions. So please look at all these things. If you're going to be serving on committee 1, you need to go read all the information from committee 1 to make sure that you're prepared and ready to go. Does anyone else have questions? All right. If no one else has questions, that'll be it for our meeting here. I would ask just for a few minutes if the state and area officers and adult coordinators could stay on just for a few more minutes. Actually, one more thing. When you get into your committees, you're also going to use the breakout feature. Let me show you quickly what that's going to look like. Area officers, at most, what are y'all going to do? 3 breakout rooms? 4? 3 or 4? Either way, we'll just say 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some breakout rooms right now. Make sure you see an option pop up on your screen that asks you to join a breakout room. When it does, go ahead and join it, see what it's like, and then I'll close it and bring you all back here. So you should get an invite here in just a second. All right, is everybody seeing one pop up? Click on it. It should take you out for just a minute. All right, so it looks like everybody successfully went in and out. You get into your breakout room, your area officer will guide you through your small group discussion in the breakout, and then we'll bring everyone back in again. I think that covers everything now. Does anybody else have any questions on anything before you go? What you got, Caleb?
So Mr. Lejeune, I don't think it records in the breakout rooms. So like, will the area officers or whatever have to like have that recording started by themselves? No? Okay.
No.
I was just curious.
No. We'll record the main meetings and we'll record the statewide meeting. Any other questions?
So you just want us to record in that main session that we have, and then once we get into breakout rooms, don't worry about it?
Yeah, and I'm going to host all those sessions on Friday, so I'll have the recording going. Y'all don't have to worry about recording things. Once we start assigning co-hosts and recorders, it gets a little more confusing.
Okay, cool.
So I'll be with you all day on. I did get some questions about official dress. If you're a state officer, an area officer, you need to wear official dress. If you're a voting delegate, we're not going to require it this year. If you want to wear it, you can, but I know that some people are not at home right now. Some people may not have access. We're not going to prevent you from participating if you don't have official. We're not physically at convention this year, so that'll be okay. Any other questions? All right. If there's no other questions, if you're a delegate or a chapter advisor, you're free to go. State and area officers, if you would, and delegate coordinators, stay on for just a few more minutes. All of you on Friday.